New emails show that Hunter Biden was included on some very important conversations involving scheduling matters that were on Joe Biden's agenda. Joe Biden, the VP at the time, was engaged with Ukrainian officials, and guess who tagged along? Hunter did. That's weird. He doesn't have a lot of experience with this stuff, even though he was being paid millions of dollars to do it. We've got some of the emails you can see, like this one. It's from the executive office of the vice presidency. It goes over to Robert Peters. And who's copied on this? Hunter Biden over at Rosemont Seneca, one of his fake companies that he created some time ago. So we'll get into those emails. Here's a little bit of more background from the Washington Examiner. They gave us this nice headline that says, Obama White House looped in Hunter Biden in emails to his vice president dad about Ukraine. Isn't that nice? He's got no experience with anything, but he's included as a tag-along. A White House scheduling email sent to VP Joe ahead of a call with the former Ukrainian president, Poroshenko, was also sent to his son Hunter. That's weird. Joe Biden is meeting with the president of Ukraine, and Hunter gets an invite to that? He was serving on the board of a Ukrainian energy company, and the firm was looking to escape a corruption probe. In the call, the elder Mr. Biden urged Mr. Poroshenko to continue reforming Ukraine's prosecutor's general office. So a lot of people say, well, all of this stuff, this Hunter Biden, laptop stuff, has nothing to do with Joe. He's just a crackhead, all right? And the president had no idea he was doing any of this stuff. Yeah, not true. All right, they were including him on it, even when he was vice president. It's unclear whether Hunter was involved in the call outside of getting an email alert about it. What do you think? You think Hunter was involved in that call? I would imagine yes. He's getting $1 million a year for that. The timing of the call, however, coincides with Hunter's $1 million a year job on the board of Burisma. They hired him to avoid the prosecution in Ukraine. So he gets his daddy on the phone to make the call. The White House scheduling email was sent on May 26, 2016, from Biden's assistant, John Flynn. It was disclosed by the National Archives after a FOIA request came out. Gave it to the Washington Times. The scheduling email from Mr. Flynn provided both Mr. Biden and Hunter with the details for the call. Here is the actual emails and what they look like. Coming over from Jeff Carlson. He says, it turns out there's another scheduling email that was sent on June 14th as well. This one details official face-to-face meeting between Joe Biden and the Ukrainian Prime Minister, Vladimir Groisman, as well. So here's another one. Guess who's copied on this one as well? He's asking the question, how many times was Hunter involved and why? This one goes to Robert L. Peters from John Flynn, Executive Office of the Presidency, Office of the Vice President. There's his email address. June 2016, Biden still in office. Copied, Hunter Biden, Rosemont Seneca. The Wednesday schedule card attached as a document. Sir, here's your card for tomorrow. See you in the morning. Respectfully, John. Here's what the card looks like. 1:30 p.m. prep for the meeting with Prime Minister Groisman of Ukraine. That happens in your office at 6:20. Joe had a busier schedule back then when he was more alive. Then proceed to this office. Then have a prime minister meeting in the ceremonial office. So you meet for a prep, or you prep in your office at 6:20. Then you go meet him at 7. Proceed to the West Wing with him at 7. 7:15, back in your office on a one-on-one meeting from 7:15 to 7:30, presumably Eastern time. Maybe a different time zone. Interesting. So Hunter got included on that. I don't know what he would be there for. Anybody have any idea? This was another one. Hans Monkey. He says the next time that Press Secretary Karine drones on about Hunter being a private citizen, perhaps someone in the room can ask her why the private citizen Hunter was involved with a May 2016 phone call between Hunter and the president of Ukraine about the prosecutor in Kyiv. The same prosecutor that was investigating Burisma that Hunter was on the board of, getting $1 million a year, $83,000 a month. Like that. Boom, boom, boom. Just to make this happen. Thursday, May 26, from the Executive Office of the Vice President, Robert Peters got the email. Guess who else is copied on this one? Hunter Biden. Boss, 8:45 prep time, 9 a.m. phone call with President Poroshenko. Then we're off to Rhode Island for infrastructure event, then Wilmington for University of Delaware commencement. Nate will have your draft remarks delivered later tonight or with your press clips in the morning. Respectfully, John. Hunter Biden got an email on that one. Now, at the time, he is on the board of Burisma. He has a literal direct conflict of interest on this because Poroshenko gets asked about the prosecutor who is investigating Burisma. I mean, the amount of corruption is full on display. It's in the emails. Everybody can piece it together. It's about as obvious as can be. So the question is, what is exactly happening here? And we know some people say that Hunter Biden is just the bag man for Joe. He's being exploited. He's being taken advantage of. He was a drug addict who was a willing participant in this collusion scheme because it kept him plied with drugs and prostitutes and power. And now he's fallen into a position where his daddy has been protecting him forever and continues to do so as he has ascended in power. This is Miranda Devine.
To Miranda, people say, oh, it's just kind of him supporting Hunter is what, makes him a great dad. Wouldn't that have been the case before all of this happened, and that you weren't engaging with deals with China, or allegedly so, with your son, who now argues that he was too high on crack to know what he was doing? Isn't that where a father's love first comes?
That's not an excuse, by the way, all right? Try to tell that to any prosecutor in America. No, I had no idea. I was too drunk. I didn't even recognize there was a pole there. Oh, you were too drunk? Oh, gosh. Well, are you sorry about it? Yeah. Are you going to write a book about it? Yeah. Is your daddy president? Unfortunately, no. Oh, well, then none of this applies to you. You're going to jail. It doesn't work that way. And so they keep saying that, oh, it's a father's love. That's a father's love. You know how many clients I've represented whose fathers I've had to talk to who've told me about their love, and I communicate that to the prosecutor and they just go, a father's love for this? No, they don't care. Prosecutors, as a general matter, all of this crap about father's love and addiction and all that stuff, unless, you've got something that really sets you apart, they hear it from almost every attorney and every defendant. So the media uses this stuff as a big excuse for Hunter when it's really not at all. Prosecutors don't look at that in the general case and go, oh, okay, exoneration. And it's a sad state of affairs. I actually wish they would. I wish prosecutors would give us more deviations, because I've had many clients. I've said, this is nuts. This is a one-off event. This person has an entire life of being a law-abiding citizen. They had literally 2 bad minutes of their whole life and something bad happened. Can you give them a break because they're a mother and a teacher and, this and this and the other? Sorry, the law is the law. All the time. Ask any defense attorney and ask prosecutors as well. They'll tell you the same thing. It's called mandatory sentencing. So Joe Biden's love for his son and his son's addiction, and he's an artist now painting portraits, and he's really sorry he wrote a book about it. All of that is crap, and it's a massive double standard just on the face of it. Even if he wasn't the president's son and there wasn't conflicts of interest and all this other stuff, it's just facially unfair. Now you add in the fact that daddy runs the DOJ and the IRS has been demasculated. They can't even do anything to investigate this properly. Reassigned, whistleblowers calling attention to it. It is a tragedy and a travesty of justice.
Comes in, and even supporting your son without having him be in front with the American people. Isn't that where that is supposed to work?
Look, I have no doubt that Joe Biden does love his son, and, any parent wants to protect their child. But in Joe Biden's case, I think you have to really question a father who puts his addicted son in front of all this unaccountable cash. He made Hunter the bag man for the family.
It's called enabling. He calls his son, hey, Hunter, I hope you get some help, man. Get your life back on track. You got to get away from the drugs. But can I get you to go over to Ukraine first, though? We've got like a big account over there that I got to get settled. But don't do any drugs or prostitutes while you're there, and just pocket your 80 grand a month.
He knew what was going on. Hunter himself has admitted that it was the money from Burisma, the $83,000 a month that was flooding in, that was too much of a temptation for him, and he fell off the wagon. He struggled in his life, and I think most Americans would wish him the best in his recovery. But I think that Joe Biden has really perverted the course of justice when it comes to the FBI, the CIA, and the federal government.
Yes, great point. All because of character and the lack thereof.
I do want everybody to be sober and healthy and well. I want Hunter to be well and to be a functioning member of society. And if he came out and actually asked for forgiveness and made amends, and they were held accountable for what they have done to exploit their country, well, we could have a conversation about that. But they're not doing that at all. In fact, Hunter feels like he's got more bravado than ever. He's responding to the whistleblower. He's responding to the Congress people, saying that what you've done is hurting me. It's harming me. It's offensive to me. I didn't commit any crimes. Your allegations against me are defamatory, and I'll sue you for that. Right? He's doubling down, saying he's done nothing wrong and everything has been above board, and how dare you for even questioning him. None of that, I think, is acceptable behavior for an adult or for a leader of a country, but they're in charge. And this is somebody who knows a lot about organized crime. John Ratcliffe, the former director of the National Intelligence, was responsible for coordinating intelligence from all the different intelligence agencies in this country. And he's been observing what's been going on with Hunter and the Biden crime family for a long time. And he says this is a cultural problem, which with I agree, that the DOJ and the FBI have now become weaponized institutions that further the power of a select political group of actors. He also says that this type of leverage that the intelligence agencies, specifically the FBI and the DOJ, have over Joe Biden puts him at risks and makes him compromised.
Unfortunately, Jason, there's been so much talk about the perception of a two-tiered system of justice. I think we're way past that. It's very clearly a reality, and as these facts play out in front of the American public, I think everyone can see that. Look, it's not just a whistleblower in this case, it's multiple whistleblowers whose testimony is now corroborated by their own documents, as well as the documents that the House Republicans have obtained under the threat of contempt proceedings or even impeachment proceedings against the Attorney General and the FBI director. And the result of all that shows the facts surrounding this tragic figure of Hunter Biden receiving somewhere between $10 and $40 million, along with the president's brother, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren from entities associated with adversaries like the Chinese Communist Party. And so everything that the whistleblower and House Republicans are saying absolutely adds up, and everything that you're hearing from the Department of Justice and the FBI doesn't. It's frankly inconsistent with FBI and DOJ practices, U.S. attorney manuals, and I think, we're left, at this point, it's no longer a question of whether or not there's corruption, it's who's involved in the corruption. It's not a question of whether or not there's been a fair and impartial administration of justice, but who is involved in obstructing that justice.
Garland, Biden,
that obstruction of
Graves,
justice that you talk about. I mean,
Monaco,
David Weiss seems
Wolf,
to want to have it both ways. He's trying to please his bosses over at the Department of Justice. He's trying to please the public. He's also trying to please the congressional investigators. Yeah. But his statements are very inconsistent, at least from where I sit.
Well, they don't even say anything. We read through David Weiss's statement yesterday, and he basically is just maintaining the status quo. He's not admitting that he had more power or more authority. He's not saying he didn't have more power or authority. He's just saying he hasn't quite gotten there yet, which is a strange thing because we already know that the news is telling us that there's a plea deal that's about to be entered. They've already filed an information. I have that coming up. So are we done or not? It sounds like David Weiss is saying, you can't judge my results yet because we're not done. Okay, well, you have a plea deal that you filed with the courts, so sort of sounds like you're coming done because oftentimes plea deals are global resolutions that resolve everything. That's why you have a deal, so that you don't have to come back and do it again. Government says, we've been investigating you for so long, here's what we think. You say, I'm not going to, I'll agree to these, but not those, and you work it out. So it sounds like it is close to being done. So his statement, his release that we read through in a previous show, doesn't make any sense at all. It feels like it's out of place.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And there's a simple way for him to clear this up. Look, I was a U.S. attorney. We didn't have special powers. If you became a special attorney or had special counsel powers, there would be an order that supported that. So if there is in this case, where is it? Why don't you just produce it? And the fact that he hasn't done that and the Attorney General hasn't done that, instead they've offered cryptic statements that are inconsistent with everyone within the Department of Justice and FBI knowing to be the facts. And at the same time, everyone who's familiar with these procedures knows that what the whistleblowers, plural, are saying is absolutely accurate in terms of how this is supposed to proceed. And yet we end up with this circumstance where the president's son has ended up with a deal that perhaps nobody else in the history of the Department of Justice has received when it comes to the type of conduct associated with tax crimes and gun crimes, not to mention the fact that the president's son and his relatives have received, again, staggering sums of money from our adversaries or entities associated with them when there is no business. There is no product that they can identify or any service that they, are aware of.
And I want to pause on this because we're talking about these very, very basic crimes. And earlier I was talking about things that might mitigate a criminal charge. This is the adversarial system. They're supposed to go and look at the aggravating factors, the things that make it much worse than the standard case. If everybody starts at zero, you mitigate to get a better result, to lower the penalties. Prosecutors want to aggravate, to increase the penalties. So in Hunter's case, does he have any aggravating factors here? Does he have anything that they could point to in the long litany of other evidence that maybe is not enough to support criminal charges per se, but it's enough to show the character and the conduct of the person? Just like you might submit character references to show that, hey, this person has an amazing level of involvement in their church, and the people in their church are writing letters on their behalf to mitigate the case. Great. That's mitigation. What about aggravation? Government could take Hunter's entire laptop and show that to the judge and say, this is an aggravating factor. We can't prove any of this here. We're not here to prove any of this. But all the talk you hear from his lawyers about being, a great citizen now, and daddy's, number two, whatever, all nonsense, because he's got a history of open and wanton criminal activity for which he is basically proud, filming it, putting it all over the internet, bragging about it, threatening people. It is open, and it would aggravate any case in the country to a massive degree. A prosecutor would look at this and go, tell any defense attorney your client is full of crap, he's a monster. And then you hear all these U.S. attorneys, who come out and they'll speak about things like women's rights and protecting victims and stopping abuse and all this crap. And then they sign off like Leslie Wolf did on this plea deal, or wash down the prosecution from happening. So all these DOJ people out here go, America, we speak through our filings and through our courts and all this crap, whatever. This guy was abusing women all over the world, and they're going to hit him with a tax crime. All right. A minor misdemeanor tax crime. Okay. And the prosecutors are going to go home and sleep at night. But if it's a Trumper, if it's somebody who sent a bad telegram message somewhere, someplace, they'll bring out the big guns and they'll throw that person in solitary confinement after they raid his house or her house. And it's disgusting.
That anyone can see. And so these are questions that the American people want answers to. And unfortunately, our Department of Justice and FBI aren't giving clear answers on that. And it's up to House Republicans, unfortunately, to now prosecute the cases that the FBI and the DOJ clearly are not.
It was something like 3 years ago where you, as the Director of National Intelligence, our senior most intelligence person in the entire country, authenticated the laptop. I mean, this was about 3 years before John Durham in his report. And yet there's still this discussion and lack of intellectual curiosity from the national media about the contents and the evidence that's found on that laptop.
It's a cover-up. It's an open cover-up.
And that's just one of many circumstances where we've seen this disparity. And in that case, amplifying a lie about Hunter Biden's laptop when it clearly showed, the things that are now coming to light and being verified by whistleblowers, by House Republicans in the efforts that they've moved forward to obtain these documents that we can all see. And these are frankly simple cases. Again, the two easiest cases to prosecute in Washington, D.C. are the gun and tax crimes against Hunter Biden, which have resulted in no felony recommendations, despite the fact that those recommendations were made, or the classified documents case against Senator Joe Biden. As you know, Jason, presidents, vice presidents, members of the executive branch are authorized to have possession of classified documents, at least at times. Senators and congressmen never are. The fact that Senator Joe Biden was in possession in 2 different locations of those documents, that's the easiest case in the world to prove beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, but it's the wrong side. It's the wrong defendant, unfortunately. Biden and Hunter are on the blue team. Trump is on the red team, and the blue team is in charge of the DOJ. And in this new America, they are now weaponized, and I think they feel pretty good about themselves for what they're doing. So only one side gets prosecuted, the other gets excused.
And yet we've heard nothing from the special counsel appointed by the Biden administration in that case. And so, it underscores the disparity that we're seeing. And it's really why, I think the next president is really going to have to do more than just replace the attorney general and the FBI director, but really turn these entities inside out and address the cultural problem that has existed ever since Eric Holder said that he was Barack Obama's wingman and began to embed partisans throughout the FBI and the Department of Justice. And I think, to identify this as a small problem is a mistake. It's a cultural problem. It's not a one-off issue. We're seeing it over and over again where there is a disparity of treatment
going on for years
within the Department of Justice.
Long before Trump walked down the stage, I'm sure. But after that elevator trip, man, it really got kicked into high gear. And after he won in 2016, then it went into overdrive. Everybody hit the panic button. The DOJ realized they're not so much in charge anymore. They colluded with the FBI and big tech, and they weaponized the entire country to stop their political opponent in 2020. And they're panicked. It's all going to happen again.
Chairman James Comer of the Oversight Committee has called what he's seeing with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, the Biden family, organized crime. Do you think it rises to that level? Is that what you're seeing? Is that fair for him to suggest that this is organized crime?
More than fair. Again, what product or service was provided by Biden Inc. for the somewhere between $10 and $40 million that family members have received from foreign entities, many of whom are our adversaries? And the problem, Jason, is, China's been engaged in a Cold War with us for a long period of time, but now they seem to be preparing for a kinetic conflict. So Chinese nationals coming across our border, spycraft going over our military sites, Chinese expanding their influence in Cuba, all in the eventuality when they move on Taiwan and attack Taiwan. If the U.S. is in a position to defend Taiwan, China wants to be in a position to address the United States with assets within our homeland, in and around our homeland, and our military and our ports. Our intelligence on that, Jason, is very clear, and yet the Biden administration over and over again refuses to confront China. And now we learn that the Biden family has received tens of millions of dollars from Chinese Communist Party-related entities. So it's fair for Jamie Comer and others to speculate maybe this isn't an issue of cowardice, maybe it's not an issue of incompetence, maybe it's an issue of compromise.
He's been compromised, and everybody knows that they've got leverage on the president, and they're continuing to exact it because he doesn't really know any better. He's been exploited probably for a long time at the behest of his son, his brother, his wife, and now the intelligence agencies, who know Joe Biden is one of the most malleable people who's ever existed in the White House. They move him from room to room. He can't talk. And even when they put a teleprompter in front of him, he can barely marble it out of his mouth. And so now we know that there's yet another connection between Hunter and Joe. It's not just a Hunter problem. This is an entire Biden family problem, and Joe is the centerpiece.